You guys, this is my leak and this is the podcast. Today, we have a very special episode. It's my first time speaking with Dr. Becky on this podcast. Dr. Becky is a clinical psychologist, a mother of three, founder of Good Inside, the papers, and everyone says she's the millennial parenting whisperer. And I just find her to be an all-around stand-up and good human. And I'm excited to have her here today on the podcast for a host of reasons. Now, Dr. Becky, or DB as she is known in my home, helped me gain so much clarity as a parent. I kept saying, I know what I don't want to do, but I can't quite figure out how to do what I want to do. And it's really hard to do things that don't come naturally to you. So during the pandemic, a few DMs turned into FaceTimes, and every chance I got to speak with Dr. Becky, I always took copious notes because there's just so much that she says that resonates with me on the deepest level. Now, today, I'm going to share some of those notes and ask Dr. Becky to share some of her wisdom more deeply with us. Now, whether you're a parent or you're considering parenthood, or you just want to better understand the impact that parenting has had on you, this is the conversation for you. You will leave with a wealth of knowledge. I promise you this. So we are going to get into this interview. I'm going to give you a fun fact before we get started. I host a Black parent support group in the Good Inside community, and I've done that for over a year. And so if you are looking for support around these topics, please don't hesitate to join me there, okay? Now let's dive right in. Okay, Dr. Becky, or DB, as you are affectionately known, in our home, you probably don't know this, but after meeting you during the pandemic, every chance that I got to speak with you, I would take copious notes because I felt like, yes. So on today's podcast, I want to go over some of my notes, some of the things that I wrote down. So these are your quotes, potentially as interpreted by me, I just want to say. So I'm just going to get started. I'm hoping that for those who are listening to this podcast, whether you are a parent, you're considering parenthood, I am certain you will learn something from this. So a quote that I have for you, Dr. Becky, is, "Our parents are our mirrors. How they react to us shows us who we are. We end up being attracted to other people who allow us to continue relating to ourselves in the same way." So the question I have for you is, how does the way we were parented influence the way we approach romantic relationships and dating?
Yeah. Jumping in with some big one.
Yes.
So, when we come into the world, we don't really have a sense of who we are, of what we should expect from ourselves, what we should expect from others. To some degree, we're talking about our identity, right? And kids are definitely born, they have a certain amount of, they have their temperament, they have their tendencies, but they don't have an identity, right? And as our kids are developing, way before they can even talk, way before they can remember a verbal memory, they're taking in all the interactions they have with their parents. And those interactions start to answer the questions, who am I? How do I connect with other people? What is allowed? What is not allowed? Which is probably another way of saying, what experiences bring safety in a relationship? Meaning, closeness, cuddles, a kind gaze. Our kids are storing this data versus what is not allowed. Ooh, anger, distance, turning away, maybe threat, right? And again, our kids, and you know that I know this, but I'll say it. Like our babies are taking in this experience.
Wow.
And it makes them learn, okay, I'm allowed to be sad. I'm allowed to speak up for something that I want. I'm allowed to be angry, right? Mm-hmm. Or sadness is, a sign of weakness, or anger makes people move away. Yeah. Speaking up for something I want when it's at odds with something someone else wants is the cardinal sin of relationships. And when I say kids learn this, what I mean is, let's say you have a 1-year-old, I don't know, who, they're at a store with you. You don't even know what they want on the shelf, but they're kind of pointing to something. It doesn't make sense to you, and they're just melting down. Let's say that, right? Yeah. A 1-year-old is not saying to, let's say, a mom, hi, Mom, I know you came to the store to get flour, but I would really like, that juice box. Of course, they're not saying that.
Right.
But they do have the experience of wanting something. They see something, it looks shiny, whatever it is. And they don't know how to express themselves, and they're having a meltdown. Mm-hmm. And let's say, again, not one instance, but we're talking about patterns over and over and over, right? This is not some one and done identity formation. But let's say this baby is crying in the store. And over and over and over in privacy and public, the general reaction is, what's wrong with you? Yes. What's wrong with you? Or, some look from the parent that we all know how to give because we've given them. Right. That's just these like dart eyes, right? Mm-hmm. Or a threat or a scream. But what really a kid learns over and over is when I want something for myself, that seems to threaten my relationship with the person I love the most. One of the lessons kids will learn is wanting things for myself is not safe within relationships, right? Okay. Relationships are safest, actually, when I look around and the people I need the most, I say, what do you want of me? Who do I need to be for you? I guess I become eventually the 3-4-year-old, even eventually older, who just sits inside my little shopping cart. Mm-hmm. I never want a thing. I'm just happy to be brought along, which I know as parents, we're like, well, what's wrong with that? That would be nice. But going to your question, I don't think any of us dream, and I'll say you and I are two women here, so like of our daughter being 30 saying, I just, my greatest hope in a romantic relationship is to just be brought along for someone else's ride. I just really hope my daughter never asks for anything and never wants a thing for herself, or figures out if it's the same thing her partner wants for her and then she's allowed to say it. But if it's ever different, she knows to keep her mouth shut because, boy, that is dangerous. Like, that is nobody's wish for their kid. But if those are the lessons our kids learn when they're young, then they learn how to relate to others and they learn to relate to themselves in that model. And then they're actually attracted to adults who allow them to repeat those patterns, because attraction later on is simply the reactivation of our earliest relationship patterns.
I remember when you said that, and I have another note that I took from that, and you said, our body likes what's familiar more than it likes what might be good for us.
It's true. Our body is a system of kind of these patterns, and kids are amazing. I mean, they do learn to adapt rapidly to their relationships in their earliest environment, because they're no dummies. They're like, I won't survive if my parent isn't happy with me. I literally won't get the food. They won't get the shelter. I will get myself into more danger. So I better learn. And our kids are amazing. They pick up on things and they learn and they practice over and over. And how many times does someone say, oh, your daughter, she just sits in that cart, doesn't say a thing. What are you? It's like of envy, right? Yes. So we get praise. We hear it. You're so easy. Yes. You're so easy. Not like your sibling who's so difficult. Okay. So I practice because what I'm learning is that is safe. Now, it probably, without a doubt, is true in childhood. Right. That familiarity is safe. Now, again, I have a feeling that does not get into safe for relationships. Those are the type of relationships we all would probably say as adults are relatively toxic, are dependent on your self-abandonment, on your self-betrayal, right? Having said that, if they were familiar early on because they helped you be safe as a kid, it's really hard, not impossible. This is the work so many of us are doing in adulthood. And it's hard to convince our body that what kept us safe in our earliest years is actually what's threatening us now. We actually have to almost override.
Yes.
Right? A basic animal defense system that was put in place to protect us, but now holds us back.
Okay. Thank you for that. It's helpful to understand. So I have a question. There was a part of me that wishes that like I knew you when I was in my 20s, and like I can imagine this going out and I'm learning about what you do, and I'm like, okay, Dr. Becky, is there a way to assess for readiness for parenthood beyond financial and logistics? Because I thought to myself, I can afford this. I'm doing all right in life. I've been in therapy. I got this. I ain't got this. That's what I...
Oh my goodness. What would that readiness kind of barometer be?
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, it is like anything else that someone's never done before. There's only a certain amount of readiness any of us can have, right? I mean, I put myself in that bucket too. It's not like I was like, well, I've done all the preparation steps, so parenting is easy for me. Definitely not. I do think that a big part of readiness is just the amount of awareness you have about yourself. And not like self-actualization. Like not like I've become an adult who's always calm and can manage all my emotions, right? That I don't even know if that's ever realistic, but do I know what triggers me? Do I know my tendencies? Do I know my non-negotiables for my own mental health? Do I know how I was raised? Because probably those parenting patterns are going to just play out if I don't pay attention. If I have a partner who's involved in raising the baby, do I know how that person was raised? Because that will play out in front of my eyes too. Boy, will I learn a lot about my partner's childhood, even though they haven't told me a thing, right? What's the role of a partnership if I have one? And how do we want to maintain our partnership or put that partnership relatively on hold when we have a baby? What is a baby really like? Literally, what do they do in the first year? Because you and I know, that's another episode, not much. They're basically just balls of desire and inconvenience without giving you much gratification. That's the reality.
Right.
Another thing I think really matters, where is my comfort level on the scale from independence to dependence? Do I like the people around me to be dependent on me? Or do I really like the people around me to like hang around, but kind of be like relatively independent?
Okay.
Where you are in that scale has so much to do to how the early days of motherhood are. Like, I know for me, I like every stage better with my kids. Every stage. People are like, it's so sad you don't have a kid and who's a toddler anymore. For a lot of people, that's a loss, I think.
Yeah.
And those people also, they love the first year. They love the dependence. There's nothing wrong with that. Let me just be clear. Nothing. Yes. But if you know, like me, it's not really so much for me. Well, I'm not going to feel as guilty about not loving the first 6 months. I'm going to be like, this is not my peak stage, Becky. Like you got to, you just got to kind of get through it. Or if I know that is for me, yes, I know I'm going to be really sad when my kid goes to preschool the first time. And I better prepare for that so my anxiety and sadness aren't put on my toddler, right? If I know I love the independence, I might also want to prepare, hey, my kid might have a hard time. I'm going to be singing my praises that I have a morning free. But my 2-year-old, I might want to prepare them. So I think all this relates to how well do I know myself?
Yes.
And that, I think, isn't talked about enough because so much is just focused on the baby.
Yes.
When I think you and I know, like, the focus needs to, kind of turn inward a little bit to get to know thyself first.
Big time. And I feel like that is the missing conversation. And it's like, I want to be like, I see baby showers and I'm like, let me tell you what you need.
I know.
Before these white warmers, it's like, depending on where you are with this, I don't know. We talk about this. I just think this is an important conversation that I definitely want to have. So thinking about becoming parents, a lot of people that listen to this podcast talk about healing. Any thoughts on how to address and maybe heal any negative aspects of your childhood or upbringing?
Yeah, well, first of all, just for anyone listening who's aware that that stuff can get transmitted, I think we forget to like pause and just give ourselves credit for that. Like I'm putting in a lot of attention here, and I really, I care about the way I show up to this future child. And I think we can get caught up in the narrative of like, yeah, I'm really messed up and I want to give that to my kid. But
Right.
I guess I just see it differently, which is, whoa, like that's actually pretty sophisticated to pause and say stuff that happened to me. I'm very aware of the stuff I don't want to pass on, or I'm aware of certain things that happened in my childhood and I want to show up to my kids very differently. And just, whoa, let me give myself credit for noticing that and being willing to learn and unlearn around that. So that's step one. And I think step two, when I think about that, when it, that word healing, I think asking ourselves, like, what are some of the things I could have really used in my childhood? And I think we can like ridicule ourselves. Oh, well, is that possible? Does anyone have that? It doesn't really matter. Our needs aren't taking like a societal survey about how common they are. Like they just live inside our dark body and they're talking to us, right? Yeah. Did I have someone that I felt safe going to when I made a mistake? Or is my body like, oh my goodness, it's basically all about hiding those mistakes or running away from those people? Okay. Did I have someone apologize to me when I know that they did something that was wrong, when they yelled at me, when it was so clear their stuff was just being acted out on my stuff? Did anyone own that? Oh, that's like a need, right? And, I think in my league, you and I have talked about this, but it's amazing when I hear people say, these are the things I didn't get and I want to give them to my kids. I think the step that's missing is these are the things I didn't get. And before I'm able to give them to my kids, like on some level, like I have to actually give those things to myself. That's where intergenerational change begins. It's not saying I'm going to show up to my kid and I'm going to be the first one who repairs and apologizes. It's, hey, what's a moment that probably it still sticks out to me? It was when, my mom blamed me for stealing her ring and she actually probably lost it down the drain. I'm making that up. But let's say it's something like that. Have I gone back to 8-year-old me and kind of shown up as the adult I am today? Because no one ever came to her room to say, like, I'm so sorry, everyone's blaming for you for that. Like, you did not do that.
Yes.
Or you did it. Like, I know you were trying on the ring because it looked fancy and nice and you never intended for it to go down the drain. And that probably felt awful and you probably felt guilty and you're a good kid who had a bad moment, right? If I don't literally give myself some of that experience, I will not have the muscle to flex to my, quote, actual child, even if I want to.
That is probably one of the biggest things I learned from you, is that for those who, caught the scripts during COVID, it was just like, okay, this sounds good. But it wasn't until I really believed that I was good that I could believe my child was good. Like it all just sounded like BS until I was just like, hold on, he's doing his best. I'm doing my best. And that was super helpful.
Yeah. And I think, the reason that is, the way our parents, the way our caregivers related to us becomes the model for how we relate to ourselves. And how we relate to ourselves becomes the model for how we relate to other people.
Right.
Right. And so if we've internalized a model of blame and criticism, every time something goes poorly, the narrative in our head is, what's wrong with me?
Yes.
Well, I have good reason to believe that you did not come out of the womb as a baby blaming yourself. I just don't think that the baby who spits up all over the couch is like, I can't believe I did that. I'm such an asshole. Like, I just don't think that's what's happening in the 3-month-old's head. They're just vomiting because they had to. Right. And so if I just think we come out of the womb without self-blame. Like, I think we could probably all see, like, I don't think that's my baby's experience. Okay, so then that means we learn it, and we all learn it. Because by the time we're in adulthood, it's amazing how often we apply self-blame as the very first thing. It just happens right away, right? Even if it's, I tried my best to get to the train on time and, and I missed it, right? Oh, I'm so lazy. It's just so fast. Well, then what that tells me is I must have had such a pattern of experience of when something didn't go well.
Yeah.
People blamed me. Or at least no one saw that I was a good person.
Right.
Trying my best, who still was having a hard time. Right? And that to me is the ultimate gift to give your kid, is your ability to see their good identity as stable inside them, separate from any moment of bad behavior. That does not mean, and we can get this, that does not mean you allow the behavior. It does not mean, oh, my kid's so good inside, I don't care that they're hitting and lying to my face. Nope, that would be so weird. Definitely doesn't mean that. But if you can't separate someone's good identity from their bad behavior, you actually can't help them improve their behavior. Ooh. And we can't do that until we practice that skill with ourselves, which is kind of amazing, because it means you could make real momentum at any moment. Even before you have kids, you're like, wait, I can do that now. So after I get fired from a job, I'm allowed to be upset. But if I tell myself, wait, I'm a good person who is going to get some learning from this. Oh, I'm so lazy. No. Well, I'm a good person who had a hard moment, right? Or I yell at my friend, or, my friend calls me out for not inviting them somewhere. And I realize, I really should have done that. I can't believe I was so thoughtless. Instead of telling ourselves the story of being awful. And, if we say, wait, I'm a good person who made a decision I'm not proud of. That's really true. Like, I am practicing building that muscle to flex over and over.
I'm a good person that made a decision I'm not proud of. Just being able to say and do that helps you parent so much better. So I want to talk about, this idea of, people hear me say Dr. Becky, and it's like, oh my God, gentle parenting, and there's this massive fear around our kids being soft. And so I just want you to
go off.
Go off. Yes.
Sorry, you were going to say something different. Can I go off?
Yes,
please. I said that.
Yes, yes. Go off.
So there's a couple things. Number one, and you know this, like, I never consider anything I do gentle parenting. I don't have anything wrong with that phrase. It's just so not anywhere in the vicinity of the way I would describe good inside.
Yes.
So I'm going to get back to that, because I think good inside is sturdy parenting.
Yes.
And I don't think anyone's afraid of their kids becoming sturdy human beings. That's like the ultimate goal. So that's the language I would use. Okay. The other fear of being soft, I actually think, relative to our conversation before this, it's powerful to say, like, was I born with that fear? Again, like when I was crying as a baby, did I then hear myself say, geez, Becky, you're being soft, you're crying about, like, again, I doubt it. So even the criticism, again, gentle parenting isn't even my thing, but still are we making our kids soft? I think it's powerful to say, whose voice is that?
Ooh.
Is that my voice? What am I so afraid of? What am I really afraid of? I'm afraid my kid won't be able to deal with the real world that's really harsh. Okay, well, what does that mean? That they'll collapse? Yeah, I don't want my kid to collapse either. That they'll have feelings, they're aware of and they'll stand up for those feelings, that they'll actually speak up for their needs instead of acting it out with behavior and resentment. Like, what am I really talking about? So I just think that's important. But going back to gentle. So I do think there are these two models of parenting that we've kind of been fed through the generations and definitely recently in the media. So one is this like super harsh, I would say authoritarian parenting. And it kind of looks like, I'm your parent, you're my kid, you're going to listen to everything I say because, again, I'm the adult and you're the kid. And if you're crying, I will give you something to cry about. Go to your room, maybe at best, right? I do instill fear because, again, I'm a control figure and I don't really care that much about what's going on inside you. I'm just looking for you to comply and fall in line. Yeah. Okay, that's some model.
My childhood in a nutshell.
Do not recommend for a bunch of reasons because of all the issues it causes in adulthood. But let's just say the other one, the quote gentle. This is almost like something people make a mockery of, which is almost the opposite, which you're upset. I'm going to stop everything I'm doing because you're upset and I care about your feelings. And if you don't want to go to the birthday party, even though we RSVP'd, we're not going to go. So in the first, my kids' feelings don't matter.
Right.
At all. And in the second, my kids' feelings are like the only thing that matter and dictate everything we do. Both models of parenting in my mind are ineffective. And to me, what's quasi in the middle is what I call sturdy parenting.
Right.
Being a sturdy leader, right? Sturdy leadership is defined by two things. It's defined by our ability to set boundaries while staying connected to our kid. In other words, I am the adult. I do make key decisions. I'm doing that, not from a place of control. I'm actually doing that, number one, to stay true to my values. I'm actually also doing that for your protection because there's no way my 2-year-old or my 8-year-old could make big life decisions.
Right.
Having said that, while I make key decisions, I still care about your feelings because I care about you.
Yes.
And caring about your feelings does not mean for 1 second that those feelings are going to change my behavior, that your feelings are going to change my decisions. Let me be clear. Yeah. They coexist. I make key decisions, and I very much stay connected to you and care about the feelings you have in reaction to those decisions while I generally still hold my decisions.
So give us the example of the birthday party. My kid is crying. We RSVP'd. My decision is that we're going.
Great. Number one, I would say, and again, being a sturdy leader, I think is very similar to being a sturdy pilot. And I think this metaphor really helps because pilots go through turbulence all the time. Yeah. I mean, I actually don't know many pilots that well, but I have to imagine that they don't finish 2 weeks of flying and say, oh my goodness, I have the best 2 weeks, not one moment of turbulence. Like turbulence happens. It's just part of the journey. Sturdy pilots are prepared for turbulence and actually kind of probably define themselves by how sturdily they're able to show up in those moments.
Yes.
So your kid being so excited to go to the gymnastics birthday party of their, let's say it is their best friend, and 5 minutes before you have to leave, say, I'm not going, you can't make me, right? Is turbulence. And it's just, everyone has it. Like you and I, every listener needs to know, it's not like we're like, wow, I become a better parent so I never have those moments. That's not true.
Right.
I become a better parent in that I actually feel like I know what to do in those moments. And I even know how to manage the moment if my kid's kicking and screaming. And I kind of feel like $1 million because I did my job well, even when my kid's kicking and screaming. It gets to be like almost weird. You're like, I feel amazing about this moment that used to send me spiraling.
Yes.
And so your kid's saying now, I'm not going. Right? Now, look, are there always exceptions? For all I know, your kid has like some 104 fever. Yeah, it's good to change your mind. But let's just say you kind of know internally, and this goes back to the boundaries and being a key decision maker as the adult. You think this is my kid's best friend, and like we have to give it a try. Like I can't just not show up. Let's say you know that. Yeah. So we have boundaries and staying connected to your kid, or boundaries and validation. So it's 5 minutes before my kid says, oh, I'm not going. I probably start just by trying to actually connect to my kid. I think about myself. If I said to my husband, I'm not going to dinner with our like best friends in 5 minutes, and he just said, Becky, we're going right now, I just can't imagine that would be best.
Right.
What would I want my husband to say? Hey, whoa, what's going on?
Yes.
It's probably like, I don't know why we're so afraid of that. Does that mean, wow, my husband's really going to let me get away with protesting other dinners? It's like so weird that we worry about that.
Yeah.
I would never think that. So what would I say to my kid? Oh, whoa, something's going on. It's actually a great line with kids when you've no idea why they're upset. It's just to say, there's something about blank that's not feeling good. I believe you. Or tell me more. There's something about this party that's suddenly not feeling good. I believe you. Tell me about that. Yeah. And for anyone listening who said, my kid's not going to be able to answer that. First of all, they might. But even if they don't, you're already building connection with them.
Okay.
Connection is like a strategy effectiveness multiplier. The more connected you are to your kid, the more effective any strategy will be.
Yes.
And I know this about math. Anything times zero
is zero.
Is zero. Okay, right? Okay. This is like we're good.
Yeah.
Mathematicians, you're welcome for a little math refresh. So if my connection with my kid is a zero, there is nothing you can do that will quote work because the multiplier is a zero. Same thing. So I'm just going to start by connecting just because that's what we do with humans. It's just like we respect someone's protest enough to be curious about it. Doesn't mean quote give in. It's just respectful to be curious and to connect. What's going on? Let's say, worst comes to worst. My kid's like, I'm just not going. You can't make me. Something like that. Right. And then, I might wait. I might pause. Let's say we have to kind of really push comes to shove. There's a boundary. I think people worry gentle parenting is okay. Well, I guess I'll just call your best friend and say you weren't feeling up to it. We know the authoritarian parenting is if you don't go in the car right now, and then we make some threat that we never keep. because we don't even want to. We just say something random. Like, I'm not letting you have your iPad for a week. And then that night we're like, did I say a week? Right. I don't think I said a week. Right. I think I said 1 minute. We did a minute. Okay, don't do that again. Totally undermining our, quote, power that parents are so worried about losing. Yeah. Sturdy parenting is this. Hey, listen, sweetie, there's something about going that's not feeling good. I totally get it. I believe you. And this is your really good friend. And this is a moment I'm deciding that we are going. I can't make you participate. You could always sit with me. We're going for at least for a little bit. So you have a choice now. You could walk to the car with me. Or if you don't start walking, look, it's going to be awkward, but I am going to pick you up. I'm going to put you in your seat. And that's what's going to happen. Those are the only two decisions. What do you think? Something like that, right? Yeah. And then, meanwhile, let's say I do pick my kid up. Mm-hmm. I know this sounds almost counterintuitive. That's the boundary part. I'm still going to do the other part of my job, even though, of course, it's inconvenient. When I'm walking to the car and my kid's saying, no, I'm going to be saying, I get it. You don't want to be doing this. Yeah. I believe you. I also know we're going to get through it. I love you. There is this like duality around like I am fully the authority figure here. There's no doubt about it. And I am still staying connected to my kid in the hardest, most turbulent moments.
I had this in my notes. What happens when we tell our kids we believe them? Because I didn't know how powerful that was.
My favorite line, because also it's 3 words, so like most of us can remember it, you know? Yes. I believe you. To some degree, when our kids are growing up, you know, I think they're asking us 2 questions always, even though they never ask it. The first question is just, am I safe? And boundaries are the thing that answer for kids whether they're safe, because they know they shouldn't be in charge. They know they should not be piloting the plane. So knowing that they have a pilot who they trust and love is one way that they answer that question. They say to themselves, yes, I'm safe. I might not be happy in this moment, but I'm safe. Yes. The other question kids are always asking parents is just, am I real? Oh. I really believe kids are asking that because their feelings are the most powerful experiences inside them. Same thing for us, right, as adults. But there's no marker. It's not like a cut where you see blood and you're like, am I hurt? Oh, look, I'm hurt, right? Yeah. They're so intense, but they don't have any markers. They're not visual. And, you know, as our kids grow up, I always think, you know, confidence really is self-trust. It's trusting that the things inside you are real. You know, oh, I really am upset. Wait, there really is something about the situation that's sketchy. I really didn't like the way my boss said that to me. That felt really wrong and uncomfortable. And I can trust my, quote, assessment, which really means I trust my feelings. That is confidence. And so every time you say to your kid, I believe you, you're really building true confidence in them for the rest of their life. Because they learn I'm real and I can trust myself. And again, I just want to say it because we worry. We can say that even when we make a decision that's kind of supposedly counter. I really want to watch another show. All my friends watch more TV than me. Mm-hmm. I can say to my kid, look, I believe you. Like I really do. I know your friends and I know their parents.
Yeah.
I believe
still
you.
Going off. I'm
telling you. Yeah. And in our family, it's this amount. I get that you're upset. Kind of also like, I believe you're upset because it stinks to not get to do something you want. That happens all the time as a kid. And right now, TV time's over and you're allowed to be mad at me and I know we're going to get upset about it. And I know we're going to get through it. So the I believe you is often also what a kid is looking for. It's often what we're looking for from our partners when we say like, I really don't want to go to your parents for the holidays. And they just said, I believe you. You'd rather be with your parents. Like we'd probably be okay, be more flexible.
I want to ask you about, you said like you're allowed to be upset with me. Like I wasn't allowed to be upset with my parents, and I don't know any kids that were allowed to be upset with their parents. So allowing my children to be upset with me is a muscle that I had to build. Why should we allow our children to be upset?
Yeah. You know, I guess I'm very, very long-term greedy in my parenting. And I just want to name that.
Yes.
Because I do think that, you know, my kids are going to be out of my house longer than they're in my house. Mm-hmm. I want them to want to be in a relationship with me after they have to be in a relationship with me. And I just feel like everything that happens after the age of 18, like the stakes feel higher. Like, as much as it matters about going to a birthday party or soccer practice or an English essay, like, I feel like when you're an adult operating the real world, the stuff that you face, the stakes are higher. Like, the impact is even greater.
Yeah.
So I often think there doesn't have to be a trade-off. A lot of my favorite interventions actually do kind of feel good now and kind of work now, and they ladder up to important qualities later on. But I have to be honest that if someone said, which one would you try to prioritize? I would choose the long-term impact. Like, I'm long-term greedy in that way.
Yeah.
I don't know one adult who has a loving, safe relationship with someone when they're not at moments upset with that person. Like, I just don't know anyone who's like, oh, I'm 42, and let me tell you about my healthiest relationship. Always happy with each other, like, perfectly aligned. Like, that person, what? Your partner says things that upsets you? That is so crazy. You have a really bad partner. You should go find a partner who just gets it right all the time. Like, I don't know what you're doing. Like, I have never heard that.
Yeah.
But the spirals that happen in adult relationships when you don't know how to be upset with someone you love, when you don't know how to communicate with someone that you love in a way that also tells the story you need to tell, right? I always used to say to couples, it is a skill to be able to communicate something that's going on for you in a way that's equally true as it is respectful. Really, there's many ways to say something that's true to a partner. You never do anything around the house. Okay, not going to be effective. But if what's true, another version is, hey, look, it does feel like the garbage and the dishwasher, like, unless I say something to you, it doesn't get done. And I know we're both busy, but I'm just noticing resentment coming up. And like, I would like to get ahead of that. Can we figure this out together? Okay, my ability to, quote, communicate that way to a partner I love does not get gifted to me at age 35. It's not something I just read in a book. And I'm like, now I can do that. That comes from how practiced I am in knowing, one, everyone's upset with people they love sometimes. Two, I've had practice in communicating to someone when I'm upset with them in a way that's still generally respectful. That is a skill, like dribbling a basketball.
Right.
That I spent time developing. No one would expect me to be able to make a three-pointer at age 35 if I had never stepped onto a basketball court. So if we tell our kids all the time, I'm your parent, you should just respect me, you should be grateful, why are you upset, right? Or worse, we make them scared.
Why are you upset?
Why are you upset? I do everything for you. Okay. Well, guess what? When my kid meets a partner one day who, let's say, makes more money than them, okay? Ooh. I can't imagine how I'm going to feel when I'm at their house and my kid says to them something that they're legitimately upset about. And when I hear their partner say to them, you have no right to be upset with me. I do everything for you. Who pays the bill? Am I going to pat myself on the back? I taught her that. I taught her that. I feel, oh, honey, that was me. I'm going to be horrified.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it goes back to the original concept that I wish was taught, you know, in grade schools, which is just the model of a relationship you have with your caregiver is the foundation for the buildings we build in adulthood. That's news to most people. And I get that it's news to most people. It's not obvious, right? But when I understand it that way, I want to help my kid understand how to communicate when they're upset with someone they love. I want my kid to just know you're allowed to be mad at someone that you love.
Yes.
That's allowed. That's normal. That's healthy. Yes. There's never been a relationship where that's not true. And so forget communicating. But if my kid goes in adulthood feeling shame and guilt for being mad at someone they love, that's going to lead to such explosivity, such spiraling, such I'm an awful person. Why would I want to put that in my kid for something that's so naturally occurring?
I have to tell you that I think a lot of people feel like a relationship is good if there's no conflict. I love this person. Why would I be angry at them? And if you don't have experience being angry with somebody that you love, then what's going to naturally occur? You don't have the skills for it.
That's right. Or, you know, I think, you know, I remember just working with people in their 20s who, you know, I remember this person coming in and being like, I found the person I'm going to marry. They literally had been dating for like 3 weeks, maybe dating loosely, like major honeymoon period. Okay. Guess what happens? There's no conflict then. I don't think you and I would say that's a great time to make a decision about a life partner. Yeah. Right? I mean, to me, I always think about this, that when my kids say they want to get married to someone, I'm going to say to them something like very romantic. Like, is this the set of problems you want to deal with for the rest of your life? And I'm only saying that because there's always a set of problems. And you just have to know about yourself. Is this the set? Right? It's almost like the opposite of the honeymoon period. Right. So when you argue and you fight, to me, that's like the best way to be like, how do we argue? How do we communicate? How do we express to each other? Do we wait until we're 10 out of 10? Right. Do we speak earlier and more often in a way that's just, light and easy? Yes. Right? I feel like in HR, they call this like point easy feedback to an employee versus point difficult, right? Same thing. So I want to teach my kids, number one, you can't communicate about upset feelings if you don't think it's okay to have upset feelings, right? So step one is just knowing you're allowed to be upset with me. You're allowed to be mad, right? Sometimes I say to my kids, I love you so much that I'm willing to do something that I believe is good for you, even when you're mad at me. Yeah. I am more interested in your safety than in your being pleased with me in a given moment. I feel like that really matters, right? And so the way we can tolerate those moments when our kids are young is such a gift for them to have a foundation for really healthy relationship patterns when they're old. But I won't take away that it is exhausting and inconvenient to do it in the early years.
AF, yes, it is. Okay,
Truth.
Another quote I have is about regulation, which I have in my notes, the single most important life skill. And then I have bonus, dysregulation, co-regulation, self-regulation.
Great.
We all need co-regulation for the rest of our lives. Say more.
Yes. So emotion regulation is kind of the hidden skill. And I'll say, like, what I mean hidden is it's not visible like someone who can make a 3-pointer is like visible in the same way. Okay. But emotion regulation is the skill that allows us to have a strong emotion and stay relatively grounded and capable of making good decisions. I would even say capable of making decisions, because the alternative is when we're not regulated, the emotion takes over us and dictates what we do. Right? And very few adults say, I'm going to yell at the barista right now for, making my latte wrong. I'm going to do that by the time I count to 3. No, it just happens in this moment. Okay. Disappointment with your latte. Or maybe it's, I've been disappointed about a million things all day and I haven't realized. And so I was kind of at a volcano and anything that happened next was going to lead to an explosion. Me yelling is a sign that I am lacking in that moment access to an emotion regulation skill I would need to manage a difficult emotion. And so we're really talking about, with regulation, emotions versus behaviors. Okay. We see behaviors, right? And in kids, we see behaviors. Yeah. We see a kid hit a peer. Yep. We see and hear our kids say, I hate you, right? That's a behavior. And what we tend to do, me too, is we have a reaction to the behavior. We actually react to our kid as if they are the behavior. Yeah. Right? So we respond to behavior almost on the surface instead of seeing kind of the emotional struggle. Yes. That is the reason our kid had the behavior. And so when I think about the goal of childhood, I think, okay, there's emotions that are hard to deal with. Disappointment, jealousy, anger, sadness. But we don't ever get rid of those emotions. Again, no adults I know say happy all the time. Yeah. Just never feel disappointed anymore. Nope, never feel jealous anymore. It doesn't happen to me. So if we know when our kids become adults, they are going to feel all of the difficult feelings in the world, then I think we can back into, wait a second. Then I actually have this opportunity when my kid is young to teach them all the emotion regulation skills in the world. It is true that when our kids are young, they have all the feelings and none of those skills. So those feelings come out in behaviors. But if we wear almost like glasses and we say, underneath my kid's bad behavior is like a screaming out for help to build certain emotion regulation skills, then I'm playing that long game. Yes. And so regulation is where we want to get. Dysregulation is where kids start. So what is co-regulation? And this is an inconvenient truth of child development, is that the best way kids learn how to regulate is through us caregivers kind of lending our regulation to them in a moment when they're or unregulated. Which in very plain English terms is like lending our calm to their chaos.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So my kid is having a meltdown because I said they couldn't have, I don't know, whatever they wanted for breakfast, or they can't watch another show, or who knows, the crispy apple is just too crispy today and they're having a meltdown, right? The things kids do.
Right.
They are dysregulated. It probably had something to do with that moment, but there's always a kind of straw that broke the camel back aspect to meltdowns. It's just like a buildup of frustration in a day. It's something happens. Okay. There's nothing we can really do in that moment to fix it. And that's actually helpful to know, because I think unconsciously we think being a good parent would be to like end that moment. So if I remind myself, like, my job is not to end this meltdown.
No.
Right? My job is to keep my kid safe. So no kicking, no like throwing glasses across the kitchen. Right? Keep my kid safe and keep my body calm. The more I focus on just keeping my body calm when my kid's body isn't calm, that is the most impactful thing I could do. Most impactful. Yeah. Which probably goes back to how able am I to keep myself calm when there's big emotions around me.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And I think this is a lot of that reparenting work too, because again, if we're honest and we say, yeah, I grew up in a household where I wasn't allowed to have any emotions. Yeah. I grew up in a household where if I was upset, there would have been big emotions. Then we have kind of taken that in. And it is this amazing cycle breaking intergenerational work to say, okay, I am going to do that healing. I am going to do that reparenting. I'm going to read this parenting book or take this course or whatever it is.
Yes.
Right. So I can kind of change the trajectory of what is passed on, to my kid.
Yes. Okay. So I found like one of my old notes that I had like typed in my phone one day for you, and we did talk about it. And so I want to talk about it here because it's one of my favorite things. It's about desire. And this is the note is, my kid wants things constantly. The toys are endless. It's okay to want things, but my goodness, that is my note that I want to talk to you about. And I was just like, how can I stop my kid from asking me for something after every time we go to the store, after I've already gotten them something? Like, why do you constantly want more?
Yes. So yes, I mean, to me, this is like this very big picture conversation around our relationship with desire, right? What is it like for me to want things? And what does that even mean? What is my relationship with wanting things for myself, with desire that might be inconvenience for someone else? And our kids, for all intents and purposes, especially toddlers, they're balls of desire. They just want. They want. And I actually invite parents to almost look at that with wonder and almost with like envy, because I know that a lot of adults, and especially a lot of women, the scariest question to them is, what do you want? Scariest. Yeah. Scariest. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Right? Because we learned early on that wanting something for yourself was the cardinal sin in a relationship. Yeah. Because if you want something for yourself and you're a kid, again, you don't yet have the skill to want something and not get it. Yeah. So what happens when you want something badly and someone says no? You have a meltdown. Well, if you learned danger, punishment, maybe I got hit, maybe I got threatened, maybe it just felt scary, then what you actually learn as a kid isn't, I should have a better way of expressing myself. No, what you learn is wanting things for myself is dangerous.
Ew.
And the best thing I could do in a relationship is distance myself from my desire. Desire equals danger. Desire equals bad. And what I think about with kids is actually, it's so amazing to know what you want. And it's like, how can we ever even live a life that's in line with our own values if we don't know what we want? That's like the thing that puts in touch with our values. Right now, look, it is a long arc We want our kids to want. We want them to learn how to want things and tolerate not having things so they can get along with people and not think the world is their oyster. That is 100% true. Okay. But the answer to getting there isn't punishing our kids for wanting. It's us having to set boundaries, tolerate our kids' protest, tolerate their meltdowns, because when we can, right, as an example, I know you really want to go to the store again on our way home from school. Sweetie, I get that you want that. You have a million ideas. I actually love that about you. And we're going home. We go to the store X number of times a month. That's all. By the way, we just went yesterday, so it's another 29 days. Yeah. But, if you want to cry about it, that's okay. We're still going home. When I show my kid, I can recognize their want as real. And I can tolerate their wanting and not having. That helps them understand that their wants are real and that they eventually will be able to tolerate wanting and not having. And that creates a very healthy and adaptive relationship with wanting and desire, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. Like kids, and I know you've talked about this with your kids want things.
Yeah.
Kids want things. And I think one of the reasons we're so triggered by it, probably on some level, is we're jealous. We've so distanced ourselves from our ability to say in such a raw way to someone else, I want to go to the store. I do not want to go home. I don't care what you want to do. I want to go to the store and I want you to buy me something at the store. I want you to do it again tomorrow. Like, it's so kind of amazing. Like, look at you just taking up space, right?
Right.
And it's, and one thing I want to tell listeners is when our kids are like this, the easiest thing is to say like, my kid's selfish, right? Or my kid essentially needs to be more like me. Right. I don't do that stuff. The answer to becoming less triggered and to rebalancing this is for you to become more like your kid. Not to go 100%. But I promise you, if tomorrow you say, what is one thing I'm going to say to myself? And I'm going to go to a coffee shop. Maybe I do get the wrong coffee. Okay? And instead of saying, oh, okay, I'm walking out. What if I did go to the front and say, I think, I don't know, they made me a latte and I just asked for a drip coffee. I realized I was actually charged too much also. I bet if I say that one time, I am going to be able to handle my kid asking me to go to the store in a completely different way because it is not some completely foreign experience that I've coded as, quote, bad still.
Okay. I think as we wrap up, when I had my first kid, which if I hadn't had him, I probably wouldn't know you. But when I had him, a lot of the things that he did, I was told were bad. And I have never met a person that cried daily. And I think I found out through your work about sort of like deeply feeling. And I think for any parent that's like, I'm glad that I had two kids, because if I had just had my daughter, I'd be like, oh my God, what's everybody talking about? Parenting's like easy. All you have to do is just be like, like she's just, where my son, even I just saw him recently. I was like, can we get through anything without me having to give you drops of blood, So if you could just explain sort of deeply feeling kids and how they are different, I think it would be so helpful for parents who are just like, I don't know, I'm doing everything. Yes. I'm even I feel sturdy and they're still screaming.
Yes. And I hope this is helpful also for adults who hear this and might think, oh my goodness, like maybe that was me. Like maybe this was me and my family even, probably definitely despite trying their best, just didn't get me, and I think I developed this concept of deeply feeling kids when I had my second kid. So my first was, I wouldn't say he was easy, but I would say it was like more linear. That's just the way I would say it. Like, oh, okay. Like this thing kind of helps. And I've heard that this helps. And I kind of see over time that it does. And I say the thing that feels helpful. Oh, you're having a hard time. And of course he doesn't say, thank you, Mom. But like, I feel like he takes it in and it kind of starts to calm down. Okay, I feel good. And then I hear all these stories of parents would say, I'm trying the things and it's making things worse. And in the back of my head, I'd be like, I think you're doing it wrong. Yes. But it turns out, when I had a dose of my own medicine, I was like, wait, you're not. I feel bad about that judgment in the back of my head. Because deeply feeling kids are kids who are, I always just visualize this, they're more porous to the world. I think that's like the best way of thinking about them, where if you think about your pores on your skin, and if every single pore was a little bigger, you would understand, wait, so more comes into me. Literally more flows in than I do get kind of to that volcano explosion state. More often, if I'm more porous, I get to my limit more quickly.
Yes.
And if I'm more porous, oh boy, more comes in, but more flows out. When that stuff, those screams and those hard moments, I get there more often. Yeah. I feel things more intensely, and I express it in a more intense way. So that is all true for deeply feeling kids. So if you're a parent who thinks my kid seems to have these meltdowns that are more frequent, they last longer, and they really seem way more almost violent and intense than other kids, like, you are not making that up.
I needed that. That is why, like, when I found you, I was like, okay. Yeah. So I am not out of my mind, because I am trying everything, and this kid is screaming everywhere all the time, and people are looking at me, and I'm thinking I'm not that great of a parent. I mean, nothing humbled me like my child. Like,
right.
What?
And I think with those kids too, you try things that do help other kids, and they do inflame these kids. So again, you're not making that up. Where you're like, but like my parenting methods that seem to work with another kid, they seem to make things worse with this kid. Like, that's not, also true, because those kids, because they're so porous, they have a little bit of almost like paranoia about the world, but it's protective, because if you knew you were more porous to the world and more could flow into you and almost harm you, you would have to look at everyone in a kind of skeptical way. Like, are you out to get me? Are you out to get me? Right. And anything that could be perceived as out to get me, I better assume will. And then I respond to it in that way. So these kids, when they're really vulnerable, I often say they experience their feelings as like terrorists in their own body. Okay. Like, they feel attacked. Mm-hmm. By if they trip and fall, it's like someone attacked them, and they respond. They'll say to a parent, "You tripped me," and you're thinking, "I was 30 yards away from you."
Right.
Right? Or you try to help them. "Oh, was it hard for you when your brother was having a play date and he said you couldn't play?" And the way they respond to it is they're like, "You hate me and I hate you. Get out of my room." And you're like, "What just happened?" I literally gave my best interpretation. And my kid just slammed the door in my face, right? Because in some ways they're already emotionally vulnerable. They have this shame, they have this fear, and you even say one word about it. Obviously, you're just trying to be helpful, and they hear the one word. Oh, there's the reactivation of the threat again, and they respond to you as if they're a caged animal, right? Yes. And so, again, these are so many kids, and I think my most, impactful moments I think I've had within Good Inside membership is when I do a deeply feeling kid workshop, or I see it in the community, and the overflowing of, oh my goodness, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one who had a kid who hissed, who tried to scratch me, who literally, when you say act like a caged tiger, like they kind of appear like a caged tiger, like growling. That doesn't even growling. It's not metaphorical. It's like, no, it's not. No. It is freaking real.
Yes.
And I've been there too. And I think that I just had to rack my brain with my second and say, okay, this stuff is not working. But I know she's a good kid. She's good inside. Something is not connecting. Mm-hmm. She must need something different. But that is like a failure of the very little kind of focus the world has put on parenting kids who are a little different. That's not a failure of her. And so what if I took everything I knew about adult development and emotion regulation and understanding shame and understanding attachment and thought about, what would resonate with these kind of vulnerable, shame-prone, deeply feeling kids? And when I started to think about it in that more first principles way, I started to just intervene very differently. And then I started talking about it in my private practice and with parents at lectures and learning from them. I honestly started talking about it with so many of my adult patients who were these kids. Mm-hmm. And they have given me so much information about what they really needed in such a poignant way. Yeah. And then I really started to put together in like what I really feel like is an approach. It's like almost like if good inside and sturdy parenting is like a revolution within parenting, I feel like deeply feeling kids is its own like mini movement,
It is.
And I was bowled away by sharing stories from my home and hearing so many people like nod, not like, oh, poor you, but like, oh my goodness, me too, Yeah. And, I'm proud of so many things within Good Inside. It's like if I had to pick a favorite child, I guess the deeply feeling kid stuff would be my favorite if I had to.
Yes, yeah. I love the community and the membership because it's like I feel like being around other people, sort of like wearing a DFK badge, like DFK parent badge, and it's like they just if you are parenting with someone who gets it, when you're in community with people who get it, it's like you're less embarrassed. It's like somebody can sit with you, or just even when I'm with my parent friends and the kids, like, Oh, I get it. Like,
I get it. And then I
yeah.
think the wins, which do come when you have an approach that makes sense. Like, I know in the community, like, you know, maybe a year or so ago, I still remember my deeply feeling kid who, again, she would have blamed me and been horribly spiraled embarrassed if she tripped playing soccer. I remember her being in front of our big family and reading something out loud and completely messing up the word in front of everyone. And I remember her literally laughing and just going, oops, and then continuing. And like to have a community who got like, oh my goodness, like that didn't just transform, like that didn't just happen with age. Like that wouldn't have happened had we not been like really understanding things for her and helping her build skills in moments. And to see it come together in a moment that seems meaningless, but is so meaningful. I remember me and my husband being like, oh my goodness, right?
Yes.
Also has just been so huge.
Yes. So, Dr. Becky, you are my parenting person. I thank you for all the things. I am the parent I want to be because I have met you. And so, you know, I was like, if when I met you, I was like, if this woman ever has a gang, like I'm in it because I say this all the time. I just want for my kids to have the kind of factory setting that allows them to be in relationships, to be out in the world with confidence as themselves, whether I get it or not.
Well, I am so grateful to know you. I learned so much from you. And one last plug I should say for everyone listening is I always say like now, you know, now is always the right time. You know, I think we can, I messed up my kid at this age, at this age. Like repair is my favorite topic. We can always repair. It is never too late. The right time for change is always right now. And so if you've come here to listen to this, your timing is impeccable. And just, I want to leave people with that message.
Thank you.